So we're going to finish up with talking about some Roman theater. Now, I'm going to breeze through this pretty quickly because Greek theater was where it was at. Roman theater is in many ways, generally about Roman culture, was an extension or built on Greek culture. So here we go. Um, Again, I'm going to breeze through this pretty quickly. Um, the Roman Empire and culture is rising as Greece is falling. Um, the aesthetics based around, which is what I'm really interested in, the aesthetics on entertainment for Romans was quite different than Greek. Um, First of all, the religious experience or religious background for theater was not really there once we get to Roman. I mean, in some part it was, but certainly not the way it was in Greek in its foundations. So there was more comedy. There was just like the Dionysian festival, the Ludi Romani was dedicated to Jupiter, who was the equivalent of Zeus, the Roman equivalent of Zeus. So again, very similar things in some respects, um, but much different aesthetic. There aren't, as far as plays are concerned, there aren't many existing plays that are of any kind of consequence from the Roman era, which is why, again, we really look to the Greeks as the foundation of Western theater. So, as far as entertainment, I think it's interesting and useful to see some other things that people of this culture were interested in, other things that they found entertainment in. You may be familiar with um, the Colosseum, where gladiatorial combats were held. In fact, if you know anything about gladiatorial combats, you know about the Roman aesthetic for entertainment. Um, they were quite bloody in many respects, whereas the Greek tragedians, they had all their heinous crimes and bloodbaths happen off stage. Romans wanted to see that. Um, so much so that there is evidence that they actually literally killed people on stage. If you were um, a criminal, you could possibly have your capital punishment or your execution be a part of a stage play. This happened especially during the Roman era. Again, everything that happened off stage in the Greek era happens now on stage. Um, this is not really that far off from what they did with the gladiatorial combats, where were a prisoner of war or you were um, a, a slave and you were, doomed to fight to the death in a coliseum with hundreds and thousands of spectators watching on. Um, so anyway, you get the feel for what that would be like. The I have it as the last clip. I don't know why, but there's a very funny activity that went on in these coliseums, in addition to gladiatorial combats and chariot races and equestrian shows and things like that. I'll get to that. So as far as plays from this time period, we have Plautus, Terence, and Seneca. Those are our three main playwrights. But again, they're not hugely consequential. You don't see these plays done anymore. You do see Oedipus performed. You see Medea performed. Um, it's not the Medea you're thinking about, not Tyler Perry. But you do still see Roman plays perform. I'm sorry, Greek plays, not so much Roman plays. Um, but Plautus, Terence, and Seneca. I'm kind of interested in Seneca because Shakespeare was inspired by him and wrote versions many times of Senecan plays or Senecan type plays. the one that I described to you, Titus Andronicus, Shakespeare's play, Titus Andronicus. I described that to you when I was showing you my costume designs. Um, that is a Senecan story. So again, to give you an idea of the bloodiness. Again, Roman festivals, just like in Greek culture, the theater was based around festivals. We have acting companies. We actually now possibly have some professional actors entering the scene, that we do have acting companies, not just amateur hour performing at these festivals. As far as the theater structures are concerned, they again build right on top of the Greek theater structures. Um, they were the ones who were responsible for taking the wooden temporary structures. The Romans were responsible for taking the temporary structures and solidifying them with stone, which is why we have them today. We have the audience. We have the Scena building. Let's see, the audience that you're familiar with. That was the Teatra. And we have the Scena building, but now we have it called the Franz Scena. The proscenium, hey, that's the first time that word is coming around. That's all part of the Scena building. These other terms, I'm going to show you how they come into these buildings. Oh, spoiler alert, the sea battles. That's what I was going to show you. But I'll just hang on to it. It's a nice little footnote. Okay, so because the Roman Empire was expanding, oftentimes they were building, establishing cities and building theaters in locations that were not hillsides. So they had to, and developed a way, not had to, but they developed a way to create a freestanding theater on that same sort of design of the Greek stages. So here we have this kind of semicircular building, which is freestanding. It does replicate that hillside structure, but we have that Scena building now is um, reaching all the way across to really just close that gap there. So our performance space is here. And of course, the orchestra is still here. You can't see it, obviously, because of the cutaway of this little model. The vomitorium or the vomitoria, um, I think it's a delightful little thing. Everybody thinks that it's where people went to go vomit because they've read about Roman culture and how they would love to party till they puked and then go party some more. And that was true. They did do that. But that's not what the vomitorium was for. The vomitoria was simply a little entrance for people to come in, the attendees, to enter into the space from. Because we have this closed off area, we need entrances to get to the seating area. So it's just like when you go see a football game, you go to a stadium, go see a concert, you often enter the stadium through a little tunnel in the seating area. And that's all a vomitoria is, vomitorium, singular. So that's really all it is, but it has a delightful little name. Here we go, I think. Yep, so here is some images of exactly what we're talking about. This is the Franz Skena, meaning it's the decorative backdrop for the the stage building. You can see, and I think I've got some pictures here that zoom in. We have some little statues in the windows, in these cutouts, in these alcoves. We have these very fancy um, pillars. So these are becoming more and more extravagant. They're not the simple buildings that the Greeks built. Here we go. Yeah, here's a nice little image. You can see little statues decorating the openings. And we can see some, full-on tunnels. Those are not the vomitorium. The vomitoria would be in the seating area, something like that, to get the audience in and out. Ah, here's my beautiful little pictures. So, as I said, in the Colosseum, this doesn't really have to do with acting, but it does have to do with theater. Uh, the they would occasionally flood the Colosseum, and uh, put in these little mini boats. I mean, they were still big enough for people, but they were not, they're not obviously full-size boats, that they're not, toy scale. But they put these boats and they'd have sea battles in this flooded Colosseum. I mean, if you want a definition of extravagance, here you go. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up the ancient theater unit. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll get to it.